Hey guys, DJ Irvine here, and I am here at ADE with Tom Hades right now. And we're doing a little masterclass today. What are you going to be showing everyone here?
It's a big surprise for myself, so I'm just gonna follow a flow I usually do in the studio, because I think it's nice for people to see that it's not always like a magic button or a template or whatever. I'm gonna do it from scratch.
It's a blank Ableton project.
That's it.
Let's see how we go.
I'm Tom Hades. I'm a Belgian guy. I've been doing this for 23 years in techno. I'm gonna do a workshop starting from scratch, as you see. I don't have anything, because I want to show that it's possible to do with some basic stuff that you can find online. I will go through them, I will explain what I do, but that's the main purpose of this workshop. So let's start. First thing I want to do is I'm gonna try to start a bit in the opposite way. Normally I always start with a kick, where I make some rumble out of it, etc. I'm gonna start with a melody now, and I'm gonna use a Max for Live device called Razor. Maybe people know it, of course. Everybody knows it. And I'm gonna use the new simpler from Ableton, who actually shops up like Rex files before. But you can use this in another way with this sequencer. So what I do is I just drag in something, you know. It's a basic loop from a sample pack from Brian Sanhaji. So it's a really good one. I can advise it. It's called Sensor Waves. You can find on Bandcamp. So fantastic. What I do is I slice this up and I just put in front the Razor, where is it? Here. This one. So the only thing it did is it chopped it up, like you see. And by adding some random notes and by changing the length, because I think everybody knows in techno, polyrhythms and all what is polyrhythms is like, it's perfect, it's spot on. So use polyrhythms. I'm gonna put it also on a tempo I really like. I don't know if other people like it, but I like it. So let's go. As you can see, you already have something where you can work with. I just did nothing special, you know? Why not? If I start warping these things, you can cut it out more. And this way you can start with something that can, let's say, give you some other ideas already. I hear in between stuff where I can put the chung, you know. This is how I work. I try to do question answer things. So I can leave this running. I will add a kick. These kicks are coming from another sample pack. It's a recent sample pack from Soma, SLV. It's a producer who does regular stuff on Soma. I'm just gonna get a kick which has some thump on it as well, because I want to go a little quicker, you know. Let's say I take this one, basic stuff. This one I'm gonna remove. I don't need this one. Okay. Since I have something, let me check this one. The sample I took is in D sharp. I always try to make my music at least melodic correctly. This is much easier also to mix afterwards, because everything is in frequency bands, which is logic. Otherwise they're gonna collapse anyway. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna search for another D sharp thing, just to keep it in the same. Okay, I took which one? This one, so I can take this one. What I will do here is actually a bit the same, but instead of using the Razor one, there are plenty of other sequencers out there in Max for Live. One that is maybe known, maybe not, is the ML185. It's based on the system M100 from Roland. It's a really old system. It's Well, now people talk about modular, but the modular they know now is the current one. The previous modular systems were the ones from Roland, and this is actually, that was the sequencer for this Roland system. What is so specific on this sequencer? For me, it's the techno sequencer, to be honest, because you can literally make stages. It means you can tell when he needs to do an interval, stop, do a rest, do a repetitive thing on a note, whatever. And the algorithm from the randomization is really based on a 7 chord, which is very nice for techno. So if I do this, it's not working. Why not? Because it's actually playing on a too high scale. If you slice things, it's from C1. So what I will do is I will put a pitch between and start going down. As you can see, you can already get some kind of typical techno sound out of this. Still, this is on an 8. I'm gonna try to make it a polyrhythm again, but I think the previous one I put it on 7, yes. So I will put this one on, I don't know, 6. I always try to make it a little shorter, so you can, you know, it breathes frequencies a little bit up. So, okay. What do I have now? Not a lot. But what I will do now, I will take one of those sequences. For example, let's say this one. I'm gonna sample it down in an audio track. Just use the resample mode. Short thing, it's enough. And then I'm gonna throw this in a MIDI track. Remove this, I don't need it anymore. And I'm gonna play with it. How I'm gonna play with it? Because it's now in the same key, D sharp, it's just a sample. I'm gonna use something, I build a pack now before this session because otherwise it's gonna be a little bit too boring. But I build a pack only using stuff from Ableton. I call it the drone creator, fantastic. Why? Because it's based on the resonator thing. I don't know if people use this, but I really, really like this plugin. For me, it's not enough used in music. As you can see, the plugin that I used is based on a preset, Berlin, but I made a mapping on the note so I can go to this D sharp thing, for example, and immediately if I play, it will be correct.
Takes the root, right?
Yes.
From there.
Yeah. And since I know the root, I can put it easily. What else did I do? I just mapped a simple low and high pass filter because you can create some bandpass things, which is really nice in pad or atmospheric stuff. So if I just play now, what you do is you use the same sample, so it's always correct. So whatever I do, it's always correct. So I'm not like the classical guy, but I use what I can use. So, and it's pure Ableton. And the only thing what you need to add if you want to do stuff like this is get a reverb with a lot of decay, you know, and you can mob those things as well if you want to play around with a pre-delay, for example, the moment that it needs to fade in. But I can build now something and I'm just literally taking notes . Like I just invented the next chord, but see, it works. And just by playing around now, if I just close this down, I can make it even more interesting. How can I make it more interesting? You need to evolve your sound constantly. There are several ways to do this. One of the ways that I think people know nowadays is LFO tool. I don't know if people know this, but for me it's one of the best tools they ever invented. Because you can literally map everything to this tool. So what I will do is, I don't know, map it to frequency. And then I will make it in a range that is still, you know, fluently changes. And if you change the rate, higher or up, it will constantly make your sound a little bit different. Don't sync it to anything. Just make it like an open sync.
Why would you pick telephone over automating stuff? Because you get less control where.
Yes, but I don't like too controlled, too drawn things. You know, this is organic. And if you really listen to music that appeals to people, it's not the really correct starting in breaks.
It's also perfect, right?
Yes, but if you want, you can use dither stuff, but you can use, if you want, another one, and then start, you know, mangling up. But still, I know what you mean, but it's better than draw like straight lines and breaks, and you know, it's. But actually, if you see here below, in the left corner, you can see it's constantly changing my frequency. So it's slowly going the filter up and down. If I move it more, you will hear it more. See, now it goes away. Now it's up, now it's away. But it's only slight movements, you know. Sometimes it's not about really hearing it very hard. It's like feeling there is something changing. So that's for me an important one. That's one of the things that you can use. Another thing that you can use is change frequencies. You can use this as well with LFO and the EQ from Ableton. But I found a really nice tool which is called App Equalizer. Okay, what is this? It's nothing more than an EQ, but it's based on a kind of a modular way of building things below here. So what I can do is I can add an LFO here and do exactly the same. But what is the nice part about this is you can make some kind of notch filters with this. So if they move around, they will cut out each other's frequencies, and you get a very strange movement in your sound.
It's also a nice VJ tool, actually.
Yeah. So I really love this one. It's constantly changing things. What else can you change? You can change, of course, a lot of things, but I think already by small stuff like this, it will make your track live up. Yes? Yeah. Actually, the resonator is the one, if I would close this down. Now it's only reverb. Now it's only the reverb on the sound, but this one will add extra pitches. You see, it's a core thing. And if you really want to, you know, use this plugin more, you can automate the gains that it slowly will get another one up, another pitch. So this way you can build towards a break if you want. But it's slowly moving things, okay? Since we are doing techno and what is typical about techno? There is no rule. Fantastic. Probably the reason why I do this. So there are not really strict rules. So another thing what I usually use to make my percussion, my hi-hats more interesting is also something like a polyrhythm. But I use a plugin, again, it's a Max for Live thing. If it loads, fantastic. It's called Polypin. And Polypin is based on the almost impossible to speak Euclidean sequence. You have another one, you have the classic sequence like we know it everywhere, you know. You have the Euclidean and you have the probability, and probability is really like a calculation. It's a mathematical calculation. It's gonna do from time to time a hit or whatever. I use it with the Euclidean because it's something known as well. It's used a lot. But you can use this one as well with random velocities. So not only on every hit based on the Euclidean sequence, but it's also doing random velocities. So if you put a hat on this, let's say I put a hat. And I put this a bit higher, and then I start now you get constantly different things. And what I usually do is either I take the MIDI, which means it's MIDI from this one. This way I have a quick MIDI sequence. Why do I use the MIDI over the other one? So if I stop this one now, it will play my same sequence. But this is still a loop thing. So depending on how I want to have the feel, sometimes I really record the whole track, the thing, that it's constantly changing. Sometimes I use this. Why should I use this? If I want to add some other stuff on top of it with the same velocity checks. That would be the difference. If you use then this one in combination with some kind of delay, because the velocity differences, it will also hit the delay differently. So that's my delay. For me, to be honest, I love this delay. It's from Native Instruments, but it's based on older ones, older algorithms, and it's called Replica for a reason. They try to replicate stuff, but I really like this one, so it's and it's not that expensive. So. But if you want, there is another one. I can close this one, which is called Magnetic. I don't know if, yeah, it's all Max for Live, this one. I don't know if people know this one. It's based on the Roland RE, yes, Space Echo. Same thing. But it's, yeah, from Sound Toys. Yeah, from Sound Toys, yeah. But this one, what is really nice is it's also, it has a noise filter, so it's really based again on a principle of the old ones, and you can feel it. You know, if you put this on, there is a big difference in feel towards like the typical ping pongs delay or simple delay. It's, for me, it's nice, but it's too easy. Okay, what else? Maybe we can use, I don't know, another closed hi-hat for the typical, you know, in-between thing. Okay, it's enough. Just put it. that was my next trick. No, what you can use here is, I think people already know this one, for coder thing, because it's filling up the spaces a little bit with noise. But I'm coming again to my little LFO tool, and I will mop it to the dry wetting, put it on random, and put it on a really high rate. And if you would listen to it now, it's constantly something different. Small differences, but it's like longer, shorter, more noise, less noise, cut out noise. So for me, making tracks is all about all those changes. And you can easily use this with automation, you know, you can do it on your own. What I do here is like, this is my complete studio, no it's not, but I do exactly the same with hardware. The only difference is then I just hit record as audio, different multi-track recordings, and I just start moving all the time everything. And then I take the next one.
Also in this phase?
Yeah, like this, like. But I need to drink a lot of coffee then.
What's the rate doing the other four? Is it this?
Yeah, it's a high rate now, but it's on a random, instead of the typical sine, it's on random, so it's constantly. Excuse me?
It's like
Yeah.
white noise is also
Yeah.
randomization,
Yeah.
so I guess
Yeah.
that using that waveform.
Yeah, true. I just put in a kick, so I guess the kick is not really like pumpy, full. It's lacking a lot of things, right? So what do I always do with my kicks is I try to lift them a little bit up. You can use this with a lot of things like saturation, whatever you want. One of the plugins I really like for this is from Isotope, Trash. Okay, it's just louder as well, but it will bring up the thumb easily. And if I go back to the Isotope, what did I just do? I just split it up. Normally it opens up in single mode, but I just take multi-bands. Why? Because I use on different bands different saturation things. For example, on the low thing I use tape. Why? Tape really glues your low automatically. If you would do the same with the saturation plugin from Ableton, it will make it boomy, but it will really mod up your frequencies in the low part. So then you need to start EQing so much. This is pretty clean, to be honest. Then the next one, I use the same on this one, but you can use on the mid-range something more honky, you know, to have the 120 coming through or even more. And then on the higher one, normally on the high tail of a kick, I wouldn't use too much because it can really mess up your mix as well. But I got the impression that the M drainer is just enough. All the other ones are way too upfront for a kick. Okay, after this, I use this one, but I have the UAD version as well, manly passive thing. I really like this kind of EQ because if you crank stuff up, this is not a level, it's not a volume. It's just, it doesn't mean if I put here 2.8, it's 2.8 decibels. It's a calculation based on what you select here and select here. That's the typical part about a manly passive. So if you crank it up, you don't really push it too hard either. So there is preset called bass drum, you immediately feel that it lifts up the lower end. Actually a bit too much now, but okay, you can fix that afterwards. But what is really important is this one. It cuts out around 380 or 270. You can try to feel where your kick is sitting. The reason why I also love these kind of EQs is you don't really have so many options on going in between frequencies. You know, you really need to make a decision. It's this or another one, that's it. But it forces you to really make decisions. Otherwise, you will keep on, you know, messing around a little bit left, a little bit right. Okay. And then one more thing I use is this one. It's based on the DB160. It's again from Native Instruments. What do I use is kick parallel, because I want to have the parallel sound coming in. The dry and the one that is, and then of course, yeah, you need to start compressing more or less. For me, it's hard to hear like this. So. Yeah. I'm not sponsored by Native Instruments. Just to be clear. Okay. One more important thing I really want to, let's say, I want to put pressure on is use utility. Why? Because too many mixes have too much stereo in the low. I get demos for my label. They're fantastic tracks, but they sound horrible. And this is one of the main reasons. It's very, very, very important. Because I know with club systems nowadays you shouldn't be really thinking too much on mono sounds, because people listen with headphones, on iPhone, on anything, you know, on laptops. But still, this will make the crossovers in the clubs for the low sound, they will make it bumpy or not. Basically.
It also makes it sound sweet.
Yeah.
Because you don't notice it, but it's there.
Yeah. If I would, yeah, if I would really make up, for example, you can use this plugin from a DMG Audio is an equalizer. Why I really like this one is the white is the mono signal and the blue is a side signal. Yeah. So I can crank up this side signal even high, but as you can see, I just took up the bass. If I put it back, look, it's there. There is a lot of stereo material in your kick, and it's really taking up everything from your headroom.
What's the name?
This plugin, it's DMG Audio, and the plugin is called Equilibrium. Yay!
What was that last thing? Sorry, I missed it.
Okay.
It's mono making of the kick.
Yeah, the mono making of the kick, like if I close this back down, you have the utility plugin in Ableton now, at least in the newer version.
Yeah, it's 10, but you can also use EQ8.
Yeah, you can use a little bit of, yeah, there are different ways to do or get this kind of effect. But the good thing with utility is it works. The bass mono, it works.
Which frequency do you keep it at 120?
It depends. But let's say I try to get from 100 to 150 in between there, not higher either. Yeah. Because you miss material then in the stereo again. It's there. Sorry. There is nothing wrong to have a bass line, for example, who has some grumble in stereo, as long as if between lower than 120, let's say, or 150, if it's mono, then it's okay. Okay, I'm gonna remove this one. what else can we put? Yeah, we can put traditional rides and claps and stuff like this. What I will add now is one more thing. Wait, before I use this. This is my pad. I'm a big fan of making racks. I make Ableton racks based on a lot of things. I just experiment, I throw on stuff and I start messing around, and at a certain point you can get to something you really like. You can get a combination of effects that really works. And then I just group them, then I start mopping stuff, and then you can get to something like, for example, this is my dub chord. You can use this really to make dub steps, you know, the typical delays that it comes in between, etc. But if I put it on my pad, I will put this a little bit higher that it stays high. Touch this. This is a typical bandpass thing. What I actually added here, I'll close this down. So, I just cut it out, some stuff I really don't need. Again, you can map even more, but it's something I built which is okay for me. Then I put some saturation on it. This is linked, as you can see, by the drive knob. That's the one I just added. Normally, it's still an old version apparently, because normally I use it in an opposite way for my output. If I put more there, I start cutting out here. That's the reason why it started to go up. Normally I would cut it out almost the same amount that I put as drive. Because you don't want to have your sound be louder, it needs to change. Everything what sounds louder sounds better, but it's not always better. Then I just use the typical auto filter as a bandpass. It's nothing more than this. And then for dub delay purposes, it's these kind of combinations that make dub delay. Dub chords. You use a linked one, because if they're not linked, it's not typical dub. A dub doesn't know a ping pong. A dub is just a stereo delay. Again, I use a saturation if necessary. As you can see, it doesn't do anything here. Only it glues a little bit. That's it. Then, of course, a compressor. If necessary, I will come in and try to get it a little bit more together as well, blend it in. And then I have the redux thing, and that's actually all those stuff here. Also the erosion, to make it a little bit more gritty. You know, we don't want to have the trance pads in the techno stuff. So you can make it even more gritty. If I cut this out, it makes much more texture. But this is just an example of something I built, but I have shitload of those racks. So
when you do something like that right now, do you always keep in mind whatever low-end frequencies that might be adding to the mix?
to be honest, I try to limit myself to EQ too much in Ableton.
Okay.
I do the basic stuff, what is necessary, but when I go in Ableton, I want to make music. I don't want to be spending hours and hours and hours on, oh wait, no, this is not okay, this is not. Do the basic stuff and make your mixing and your mastering, if you do it, separate sessions. Because if you start mixing, you will listen to your track again maybe the day after and maybe it sounds shit. So instead of putting too much effort in this, Just take Ableton as a tool, like a guitarist would take his guitar and start jamming, you know, like a drummer would do the same. Just use it like this. You can always come back and do EQ cutting or whatever is necessary. But stuff like this bass mono, it's not too complicated. It doesn't take up your time. You know, if you're in a flow, I stop now this session from time to time, but normally when I'm in the studio, I never stop. It's constantly playing. I never stop. And at least if my CPU doesn't stop.
So it's like one editing session and one creating session.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. For me, the mixing and mastering thing, I can quickly show, because I still have 5 minutes, I can quickly show afterwards what I do there. Just to finish this, one other thing I always want to add, and it's again based on the changes I want to do, is I want to make some kind of atmospheric noise or whatever, kind of crackling noise. And for this, there are many possibilities, but I found a plugin called this one. And whatever you put in it, let me put the same, because that's the nice part about it. It's constantly changing stuff, but I just put on more and more and more effects. So let's say I put in this magnetic thing, and then I take, for example, another plugin, a rec I made, which is a washout, which is actually literally washing out everything. It's like swiping out everything. It's for people who know Photoshop, look at this as a blur effect. It's a blur effect. And what is this? A lot of things. Let's keep it there. No, but it's this one, only this one just changes so many parameters if you look at it. You see, it's changing my compression, it's adding reverb or not, it's changing EQ settings. If I try to move it again, so you see this filter is moving, the dry wet is moving, the EQ is going down. It's only one button. But this is like a kind of DJ effect if you want. So if you really want to go in a break, if you want to fade out, but instead of doing the traditional fade out, this is a much nicer fade out. Because if I would stop it like this, it's still going. But if you cut out your sound then, it will have a really nice fade out as well. Okay. Yes. But as you can hear, it never stops. So, and there are some presets which are based on changes here, but you can build it on your own. It's nothing more than granular changes. I recently bought this device in hardware, granulator, and this is, for me at the moment, the most used hardware piece because you can really go into it, really go into it. Okay, I'm gonna cut it down because it's like, that's it.
Wow.
Thank you.